There is an interesting fact related to Ferrari regarding the FIA checks. The Maranello team is licking its wounds in the meantime. In the coming weeks, efforts will be made to address the issues highlighted in the first two races of the 2025 Formula One season. A nightmare start to the new championship from a performance perspective, a direct consequence of necessary technical compromises. To make the Shanghai weekend even more bitter was the disqualification of both cars following the post-race checks by FIA delegates. The setup choices for cars number 16 and 44, heavily constrained by the current issues of the SF25, were nonetheless not sufficient to avoid plank wear, at least on Lewis Hamilton's car, unlike the irregularity found on Charles Leclerc's SF25 car, which weighed 1 kilogram less than the minimum allowed by the regulations. Contrary to what one might think and what we have read around, excessive plank wear located on the underside of the floor was an issue that the Maranello team had anticipated. The satisfaction for pole position and victory in the sprint race gave way to concern after Saturday's qualifying session at the 5.451-kilometer Shanghai International Circuit. After the 100-kilometer sprint race, in fact, Ferrari's engineers and technicians decided to make some adjustments to the cars, based on the larger amount of fuel loaded for the Sunday race. The third-row grid position in the second qualifying session confirmed the reduced competitiveness of the Ferrari SF25 cars. The FIA's communication regarding the post-race checks is a long-established practice, as is the structure of the documentation. In the report prepared by stewards and technical delegates of the International Federation, the checks performed on the cars are always listed. First of all, a myth needs to be debunked. Why was Ferrari weighed? Well, in the document called Race Scrutineering, it is clear that after the race, all cars are weighed. Having clarified this point, the document also describes other checks carried out, some of which are indeed random. Among these is the plank and skid check. Nevertheless, in communication number 86 regarding the Chinese Grand Prix, there is a small inconsistency compared to the same communications made in the past when a competitor has been found irregular. The most recent case of the disqualification of an F1 competitor for excessive wear on the skid plate dates back to the 2023 Formula One United States Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. By a strange twist of fate, it was the same two current Ferrari drivers who were disqualified on that occasion. We are talking about Charles Leclerc with the Ferrari SF25 and Lewis Hamilton with the then all-black car, the Mercedes W14. In the race scrutineering document from that time, car number 16 and car number 44 were included in the list of cars checked. However, in the same document related to last Sunday's race, car number 44 from Ferrari, the SF25, is not listed at all in the list compiled by the International Federation concerning the cars checked for skid wear. Only at the end of the document is the following reported. Apart from the car weights of car numbers 16 and 10, see document 77, and the skid wear of car number 44, see document 80, all car weights and the items checked were found to be in conformity with the 2025 FIA Formula One technical regulations. A reference to the specific documents in which the irregularities of the two Ferrari drivers' cars were communicated. This is a different formality that raises doubts. Anyone familiar with the documents drafted by the FIA during race weekends knows well that they follow formalities that have been in place for years and are essentially always the same. They never change. The discrepancy regarding the verbalization of infractions concerning the plank between the Austin 2023 race and the China 2025 race raises malicious doubts that one can reflect on. To avoid any misunderstandings, we should clarify that we are in the realm of hypotheses, as we do not have, at least for now, any confirmation of what is being reported. However, one question naturally arises. Could this type of discrepancy be the result of a tip-off from a competitor of Ferrari? Were the Ferrari cars initially excluded from the checks only to be inspected upon a formal request from another team? Logically, such an answer would explain the presence of references to the checks carried out at the end of the document and not according to the usual format reported by the FIA. A mystery that is unlikely to be revealed, just as the possible measurement of the wear on the skid plate of car number 16, which was already irregular in weight. A plausible hypothesis since the skid wear was tested on both Red Bull's, Mercedes, and McLaren cars. What remains is Ferrari's double disqualification for technical infringements in Formula One's Chinese Grand Prix, which was unprecedented. The Maranello team had never suffered such a fate in its long history. We talked about Lewis Hamilton's worn plank due to a setup-up misjudgment in running his car too low. But Ferrari's post-race statement said responsibility was different when it came to Charles Leclerc's car being underweight. Charles Leclerc's disqualification from the Chinese Grand Prix was the result of his car being 1 kilogram under the minimum weight limit of 800 kilograms including driver, but without fuel. This 800 kilogram level is up from 798 kilogram last year and was adjusted to primarily accommodate a higher minimum driver weight limit of 82 kilograms. According to FIA documents, Charles Leclerc's car was weighed after returning to the pits with his recovered end plate, and it hit the 800 kilograms limit. Furthermore, due to a damaged front wing on the Ferrari that meant the car was not in its original configuration, the car was then re-weighed with an official spare front wing, which has to weigh exactly the same, and it was measured at 800.5 kilograms. The FIA revealed that the spare front wing was 200 grams heavier than the damaged version Charles Leclerc had raced with. After this initial weigh-in, the fuel was pumped out of the car, minimum weight has to be without fuel, and 2 liters of petrol were removed. The car was again re-weighed with the spare wing in place, and its weight came in at 799 kilograms, 1 kilogram under the limit. Ferrari's assertion that tire wear was to blame for Leclerc's missing kilogram would suggest that it was caught out by a much higher than anticipated loss of rubber. As part of a team's normal pre-race calculations for the minimum weight the cars need to be at the flag, it will take into account how much rubber the tires will lose as they wear down. For the Chinese Grand Prix, team calculations primarily focused on a 2-stop race, with a short final stint where the tires would not wear excessively. But things did not turn out that way, as the improved track conditions and a pretty performant C2 hard tire meant a 1-stop suddenly came into the frame, and that meant running an extra long second stint, where the tires would be worn down to a greater extent. Uncertainty about the wear profiles were also increased by the fact that the revised C2 was being run for the first time in a Grand Prix. Teams, including Ferrari, had given it some mileage in pre-season testing in Bahrain, but as it was not one of the options in Australia, the first time they bolted it onto their cars in China because of the circumstances of the sprint race was in the Grand Prix itself. However, the unique circumstances of the Chinese GP turning into a one-stopper to increase tire wear and the new hard being an unknown quantity still do not fully explain the entire missing kilogram. Pirelli's past estimates of the entire mass that can be lost from a set of tires hitting maximum wear rate is around 1 kilogram, so the exact weight that was missing. However, teams will be aware of this, so any calculation should have taken this figure into account. They should only be caught out if the wear rate effectively spirals beyond this. But it is understood that the wear rate on the hard on Sunday was less than it had been in the sprint on Saturday, where the mediums were pushed to the end of their life. So teams will have known after the sprint exactly what the difference was between a new tire and a fully worn one. In the end, other factors are likely to have played their part too in what happened to Ferrari. Charles Leclerc's plank will almost certainly have been worn down like Hamilton's and cost him some car weight. And then there are ballast choices that Ferrari will have made when it comes to picking how close to the margins it wanted to be.